Okay, this is lecture number 10, and in previous lecture we discussed the irrigation part and the water resources part of India. Okay, the ground water, surface water, and the problem associated with the groundwater, surface water. So these were the topics of the previous class. Let me show you once which were the topics of these were the topics of previous class. Okay, first we discussed the riverfront projects, right? And we discussed the Gomati riverfront, Sabarmati riverfront, right? And the second part was the groundwater and the groundwater provinces. Okay, and the problems associated with the groundwater. The third part that we discussed was the surface water, and then the relationship between the availability of water and the utilization of water, right? And we subdivided this section and we did in very detail with a map. And finally, the concluding part of the last class was the water crisis and the solutions that can be proposed. Okay, so these were the topics of the last class, and today we will discuss the lecture number 10, and in this we are shifting the gear towards a new topic, and the new topic is again a very important topic, that is land resources of India. Okay, so in this class we will discuss the land resources of India. So let us start with a very broad statement by saying that India has 2.4% of world's land. Okay, so भारत 2.4% वर्ल्ड का लैंड का हिस्सा है. Now out of this 2.4%, on this 2.4%, India sustains 17% of the population of the world. Okay, 17% population of world, right? Plus close to same 17% cattle population of the world. Cattle population of the world, right? Now if you see this 2.4% land area, this 2.4% land area in percentage term, if I divide, close to 40% land per close to 40% area is under plains. Okay, close to 30% area is under the hills. Okay, and similarly close to 30% area is under plateau like conditions, under plateau. Okay, so this is a very broad beginning of the topic. Okay, that means we have just started and we are just defined India's resources, how it is distributed, right? Now let us start with the first of all, that since independence, how India's land resources were governed. How India's land resources were governed. Okay, see, as we know that before independence, if we divide the time scale before independence, we know in entire India there was three types of system which were prevalent. Number one was the Jamindari system, right? Number two was the Rayatwari or Rayatwari system, yes, Rayatwari system. Okay, and third was Mahalwari system. Mahalwari system. Okay, so these were the three different systems prevalent in India. This Jamindari system was mostly prevalent in the Bengal Presidency, okay, Bengal, Odisha, Bihar region. This Riyatwari system was mostly prevalent in the Madras Presidency. Madras, Bombay was also included in Riyatwari, and this Mahalwari system was mostly prevalent in the northwest India, in Punjab, okay, in the United Province. So this was the Mahalwari system regions, right? So this was the before independence, right? And at the time of independence, India just had three, not three, yeah, four metropolitan cities, metros, okay, Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Madras. But after independence, so this was the before independence land use. Now after independence, the first decade after independence, if we talk about, from 1950 to 1960, okay, from 1950 to 1960, if you see, the main agenda of the government was social and political reforms. So social and political reforms, these were the main agenda of the government. So for this purpose, the government of the day undertook many reforms. For example, Zamindari Abolition Act was passed. Okay, tenancy reforms were undertaken. Okay, land titles were ensured. Land ceiling legislations were passed. Okay, so these, we will discuss all these legislation in a minute, but these were the typical agenda of the government since just after the independence. But in 1960s to 70s, the agenda of the government changed. And why the agenda of the government changed? Because this was the decade, a rough decade for India. Okay, a rough decade for India. Now, why it was a rough decade for India? There were many reasons for this. Okay, the number one was 1962 war, in which India was defeated, right? So it was a very big setback for India. After that, in 1964, India's Pandit Nehru died, okay, and there was a dilemma of leadership. Then in 1965, drought struck India. This led to the food crisis. So it was a big challenging decade for India. So in this decade, our main focus was increasing the production, right? So main focus shifted from the social reforms to increasing the productivity, to increasing the productivity. And for this purpose, what we did, okay, the India launched, let us take this color here. So India launched green revolution, right, in 1966. So this was this decade, 60s to 70s. Okay, moving on to the next decade, from 70s to 80s, 1970 to 80s. Now in this decade, or more, let us increase this span from 1970 to 80. The main focus again shifted towards the social reforms, more particularly towards the poverty alleviation, okay, focus on the rural employment, right, along with this, the issues of environment. So these issues became the central point in this decade. Okay, then again in 90, India faced a very big crisis, as we all know, that was Biopic Crisis. Okay, and after this, in 1991-92, India undertook LPG reforms, okay, liberalization, privatization. Okay, okay, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So India undertook these reforms in 1992. So after this, the main focus shifted towards the private sector investment. Private sector investment. Okay. And in this decade, we witnessed a complete reduced focus on agriculture. Okay, reduced focus on agriculture. And this led to decrease in productivity. Right. So these reforms can be understood in this manner. But in the present day, if you ask me, in the 21st century, what do we need? India needs land reforms. India need land reforms. But the land reforms not of 1960s type. Okay, we need the modern day land reforms in the form of India need the land banks. Okay, we need the cooperati- corporatization. Okay, India need the tenancy reforms. Okay, so these kind of reforms is what we need in 21st century. Okay, so basically we discussed that how since 1950, first of all, before independence and then after independence, how our land use policies evolved. Okay, in each decade we saw. Now if we have seen this, how our land policies evolved, now what is, now I said that after independence we undertook few reforms, so let us briefly discuss those reforms also. Number one was the Zamindari abolition. Okay, so Zamindari Abolition Act was passed, and the era of Zamindari was gone. Right. So earlier, what used to happen, that the Zamindars were given the ownership of a land by Britishers, and these Zamindars used to collect the revenue from this land, and 10 upon 11th part used to go to the Britishers, and 1 by 11th is kept by the Zamindars, and the farmers were peasants were left with nothing. Right. So this practice was abolished, but this practice is still prevalent in many parts of India at informal level. This is the big problem. Okay. Now coming to second reform that we talked was the land titles. Sorry, not land titles, land rents. So land rents were reduced from close to 50% and they were reduced to 10%. Okay. So the rent are now less than 10%. But again, this practice of charging very high rent for the land from the tillers is also present at informal level. Okay, this was the second reform. Moving on to the third one that we undertook after independence was the tenureship, land tenureship. Now under the tenureship legislation, if a cultivator has cultivated a land beyond a fixed year beyond a fixed time period, okay, beyond a fixed time period, then he will be given the ownership of land. But these tenureship legislations that were passed for this particular reform, these were again dosed by the zamindars. So the zamindars cheated these legislations also by distributing land to their relatives. Plus, they themselves started cultivating. They themselves started cultivating, okay, in the fear of losing the land because of these tenureship legislations. So this was also not so successful. This part also not so successful. The third one was the this was the third legislation or third land reform after the independence. After that, the fourth one is the land ceiling legislations. Land ceiling legislations. See, land. If you see, the land distribution in India is very skewed. Land distribution since ancient time, land distribution is very skewed, and this skewness became more pronounced in the British period. And if you see in the present time, 55% land is owned by large and medium farmers, okay, and this constitute just 20% of the farming community, right? That means remaining 80% of the farmers, they own just 45% of the land, and these 85% of the farmers, 45% of land, right? And these 80% of the farmers are small, okay, the small farmers who owns land between 1 to 2 hectare, and marginal farmers who owns land less than 1 hectare. So this is the skewness, how skewed the land distribution in India is. 55% land, large farmers, medium farmers, they are just 20%, and 80% of the farmers, they own 45%, just 45% of the land, and these 80% of the remaining farmers are small and the marginal farmers whose land holding is very small, okay. So to correct this skewness, India passed a number of land ceiling legislation. That means if a person holding more than a fixed amount of the land, then he or she would have to distribute that land, okay. So this was the main purpose of these legislations. But again, as I said, this was more or less a success, not a successful reform, because this reform, land ceiling, was also bypassed. So this was also bypassed. This was also bypassed. Now, how it was bypassed? As I said, that the big zamindars, the large zamindars, in order to reduce their holdings on the paper, they distributed, or they gave the land to their relatives and the family members, okay, and family members, okay, so as to show on paper that they have the land which is less than stipulated land. Just for this purpose, they bypassed these legislations, and this was also a more or less failure, except in the two states. One is the West Bengal, another is Kerala. So here the land reforms were more or less successful, and the reason was the communist governments. The main reason was communist governments present in these two states. Okay, and these governments implemented these land reforms with a strong willpower. Okay, so this was the main reason. So we discussed these three four: zamindari abolition, the land rents that were reduced, land tenureship, okay, and the land ceiling legislations. So these were the main starting point of this class, that how we will, but this is actually not a part of the geography. That means we study this in economics also. Okay, these are the part of the post independence reform also. So this is a very broad topic, but also a starting point of the land reforms. Okay, now we will move the more geographical concepts, that how, if you ask me that how the land utilization in India has changed since independence, how the land utilization has changed since independence. Now we have to study this land utilization change in terms of the many land uses that are prevalent in India. For example, the forest land uses. Okay, for example, let us depict it pictorially. Okay, so this is the land resource of India, and the land resource of India, as we know, is 238 million hectares. So this is the land resource of India. Okay, and it is 238 million hectares. Okay, land resource of India, but it has changed, its composition has changed. For example, if we say that forestry, this is the 1950-51. Okay, this is 2010-11. So we will study how between these two periods the land utilization of India changed. For example, if I say that in 1950-51, the net sown area where the agriculture cropping was done, net sown area was 41%. This was 41.77%. This area increased to 46%. This area increased to 46.28% in 2010-11. So this is the net sown area. Again, it increased in this manner. Now when you see the forest area, the forest area was 14%. So this was the forest area, 14.24% forest area. Okay, and the forest area increased to 22.8%. 22.8% in 2010-11. Okay, so this was the forest area. Okay, then moving on to the non-agriculture land use. So non-agriculture land use was 3%. This was 3.24% in 1950-51. This is non-agriculture land use. Non-agricultural land use. Okay, NALU, non-agriculture land use. This was 3.24%. Okay, and this increased to 8%. This increased to close to 8.67% in 2010-11. This remaining that is left is close to 40%. Okay, 40.7%. This is, let us mark this as the other area, other category land, other category. I will tell you what now, which include or which is part of this other category land, which is part of this non-agriculture land use. Okay, we'll discuss all this. So this non-agriculture land use show the rapid decline. Okay, and this is, I mean, close to, if you add up these three figures, 46%, 22%, and this is close to your 50, I mean 68 plus 8, 78, and this remaining area, this close to 22%. Let us, I mean, correct it. I mean, okay, so this area, this is close to 22% left area. Now if you see the other category land use, so the rapid decline from 1950 to 2010-11. Okay, so this is the non-agriculture land use, which declined from, increased from 3% close to 8.67%, and this area, non-agri other category land, it also decreased from 40 to 22% close to this area. Now let us discuss that this, we are seeing that this is the change, this is the change in the land use pattern since independence. Now but if we see that how this change happened, okay, from net zone area increased, forest area again increased, non-agriculture land use which include the urban land, okay, road construction, railway part, dam, etc. So all these are part of non-agriculture land use. So this increased, okay, from 3%, 3.24 to 8.67%. Other category land use decreased. This other category land use is like your current fallow, okay, the land which is left without cultivation for 1 year, okay, plus the cultivable wasteland which has not been cultivated for more than 5 years. So all these lands, okay, all these land constitute close to 10% of the India's land, 10 to 12% of India's land, and this is huge if we calculate the 10 to 12% of 238 million hectares. So this land show a rapid decline. Okay, so we will analyze all these patterns independently, individually. Okay, so let us do that. Now if you see, first of all, the first trend or the first thing that we will see, the net zone area, okay, जहाँ पर एग्रीकल्चर किया जाता है बेसिकली, राइट. सो the net zone area was 41.77% in 1950-51. Okay, this area increased to 46.91% by 1990-91. Further this area increased, not increased but decreased from 46.91 to 46.28%, okay, by 2010-11. Okay, now if you see, here is a increase, and this increase was basically because India undertook the rapid productivity enhancement programs after independence in the form of like green revolution. Okay, besides this, we invested hugely in the extension facilities, okay, plus India undertook the land reforms. India undertook the land reforms that we talked about, 4 5 land reforms after independence. So these were the main reason that the if you see, the net zone area increased. So these were the main reason for increase in the net zone area. Okay, but if you see from this period to this period, you are witnessing a decrease. Now why this decrease? So if you try to find out the reason for this marginal decrease, the reason for this marginal decrease is, number one is that the productivity of land decreased. Productivity of land decreased. For example, in Haryana, Punjab Haryana region, there was this region was witnessing huge or the large scale the salinization, land degradation, desertification. So because of this, productivity decreased and the net zone area also fall. So that's why there is a marginal decrease. The second one, the government also reduced its spending on the large projects, reduced its spending on large projects. So if you see or if you compare these decades, 60s 70s decade with the current decade, the spending on the big reservoir dams, big projects has also reduced. For example, in 70s 80s we constructed big dams, Tiri Dam, Hirakund Dam, Bhakra Nangal Dam, but in today's time you do not hear such big projects. Okay, so India shifted, if you see, its gear from the big projects to the micro projects, big projects, okay, to the small and micro projects, to small and micro projects. Okay, so because of reduced spending, this was also can be said to be a reason for decrease in the net zone area, right? So this is the second reason, okay, of the net zone area. Okay, so we discussed how the net zone area first increased and then it witnessed a decrease. Moving on to the next part, that is the forest area. In 1950-51, the net forest area was 14.24%. This was the forest area in 1950-51. This area increased rapidly to 18% in 1960, and then it increased but increased slowly to 22.89% in 2010-11. Okay, so if you see that here is a rapid increase, here is also increase but slow increase. Now the reason is very simple. In this decade, India increased its mapping capabilities of the forest area, mapping of forests resources. Okay, so earlier the resources, the forest resources, the trees grew areas which were left, which were not counted, were counted. So our span of mapping was increased. So this led to rapid increase to 18%. Okay, so the area which were not accounted in 1950 were accounted in 1960 survey, 60-61 survey. This led to increase to 80 and the 18%. Okay, after that India undertook very cautious programs of the social forestry, okay, urban forestry. So all these projects, okay, led to increase in area to 22.89%. But this is a paradox. If you in reality see, there is a decrease in the dense forest area. And there are number of reasons for this decrease in the dense forest area in India. Okay, for example, increasing, okay, the reasons for reduction in the reasons for reduction in dense forest area, where canopy is more than 70%, where tree canopy is more than 70%. Now, why there is a reduction in such forest? Although we are saying that India has increased its forest area to 22%, okay, but why there is a decrease in the dense forest area? There are number of reasons. Number one, government infrastructure projects, for example, road, rail, dam, etc. Number two is the encroachment of the agricultural land. Encroachment of agricultural land. Number three is the cultivation, plantation agriculture. Okay. Next is the mining. And another reason can be said to be jhom cultivation slash and burn cultivation, right? More particularly in the northeast. This is prevalent in the central India, plantation agriculture in the northeast and the south India, encroachment on agricultural land in all around India, particularly in the vicinity of the metropolitan cities, and the government infrastructure project again prevalent all across India. So these are the major reasons for decrease in the dense forest area. But in overall assessment, we will say that the forest area increased, and this forest area also includes the open forest, okay, trees which are planted under the social forestry, agroforestry. Okay, so in a sense, in overall we will say there is increase, but the real forest, okay, which support the large biodiversity, okay, supports the biological or the ecological services, ecosystem services like the provisioning services, okay, regulating services, sporting services, aesthetic services. These services have overall witnessed a decline. Okay, so this is the second part that we discussed. Okay, in this what we have discussed that why the NFSA increased, net sown area increased, how the forest area increased, okay, what part has shown a decrease. Now we are moving on to the third part, that is the non-agricultural land use. Okay, non-agricultural land use. Now if you see the non-agricultural land use in 1950-51, the non-agricultural land use or the non-agricultural land use area was 3.29%. 3.29%. Okay, this was the area like under the road dams, okay, urban cities, etc, etc. From this to 2010-11, this area increased to 8.67%. This much is the increase. Okay, now why this increase? Now let us see the reasons for this increase. Now increase is because of the planned model of development which India undertook after independence. In the planned model of development, what I means, for example, in NCR, India adopted for the master plan, and this master plan led to spread of the Delhi in this master plan led to sprawl of Delhi in the surrounding regions, in surrounding area. So this was the one reason how the non-agricultural land use area increased. In addition to this, we expanded the mining areas, we expanded the road, other infrastructure projects. So all these plus urbanization, the top heavy urbanization, all these factors, all these reasons led to the what we say the increase in the non-land use. So let us more systematically write the reasons for increase in known land use area. Increase in known land use area. Sorry, known agriculture land use. So number one, we can say that urbanization. Okay, I can say that the infrastructure projects. Okay, then we can say about the mining projects. Okay, the next reason we can write about the dams and the other dams and reservoirs. So these all were the reasons for increase in non-agriculture land use area, right? But we have discussed the three topics. I mean three parts. One is the NSA, okay, net zone area, the forest, NALU, right? The third category, that is the other category land use. Okay, this witnessed a decrease. Okay, because if you say that what we are seeing here, that it witnessed a, sorry, this NALU, the other category land use, other category land use, the other category land use witnessed a decrease from 40% to close to 20% decrease. Okay, now this decrease, if you see, happened in the other category land use. Now other category land use, maybe they are the current fallow land, this is the other fallow land. Okay, or this is the culturable wasteland. Okay, this land, current fallow, has not been cultivated for 1 year. This land has not been cultivated for 1 to 5 years, and the culturable wasteland has not been cultivated for more than 5 years. So these lands automatically became susceptible to encroachment. Okay, and that's why these lands were also passed over for non-agricultural land use. Okay, in the cities, urbanization, sprawl, okay, infrastructure, mining, dam, etc. So that's why this land witnessed the sharpest decrease in its percentage terms. So this is this topic, the first topic that we discussed, that is the how the land use has changed since independence in India. Okay, and it is again a very important topic, this land use change. Okay, how has it has changed. Now moving on to the next part, or the next topic of this thing, this class, is that this land use is mostly unregulated land use change, right? This change has not been that it has been strictly regulated, right? So in the current context, what becomes important, that this type of change, this type of unregulated land use change, unregulated land use change has made us prone to zoonotic diseases, okay, like COVID. Okay, so why this is happening, that this unregulated land use change has made us more prone to the zoonotic disease. Okay, we have become more susceptible to such kind of disease. Why? The reason, let us write few reasons for this. Number one is this unregulated land use change has led to very heavy urbanization. Urbanization. Okay, now India has witnessed very heavy urbanization. For example, in 1950-51, India was 17% urbanized. 17% urbanized according to 51 census. According to 2011 census, India was 31% urbanized. Now, if more particularly right, the 42% of India's urban population, 42% of urban population was living in just 52 million plus cities. Million plus cities. Now, this means what? What does this mean? This means heavy crowding plus unhygienic living plus unhygienic living in slums. Right? Now, this has its own consequences. This has its own consequences. This kind of urbanization that we are witnessing, that I depicted here in the form of figures, has its own consequences. What are the consequences of such type of urbanization? Is number one consequence of such type of urbanization is that because of crowding, large population is living very close to sites like the drains, okay, landfills, and these sites are very have very heavy proneness to diseases. Right? Number one reason is this. Okay, number two is this kind of urbanization that we are witnessing in India. Or in general, we can say this, that the urban sites are perfect sites for the bats. Okay, the urban regions are the perfect sites for the bats if we have encroached upon the bats' natural habitats. And as we know, bats are the reservoir of number of viruses, and the coronavirus is one of them. Coronavirus, as we know, as has been said by now, that it has its origin in the bats, right? Horseshoe bat, as it is called. Horse Horseshoe bat. Okay, so these sites, the unhygienic condition, living close to landfill drains, leaving the people prone to disease. Okay, cramped living, very people are living in the closed spaces. For example, in the Dharavi slum. Okay, you can give the example of Dharavi slum of Mumbai. Okay, where in one room 5 to 10 people are living. So this is the condition of living. So this kind of urbanization that we are witnessing naturally leave us very prone to the zoonotic disease. Okay, this is the reason number one, that why unregulated land use change is dangerous. Why this is leaving us prone to zoonotic disease. Okay, so we discussed it. First, they gave the urbanization data, and then this kind of urbanization. Why this kind of urbanization is extremely dangerous. We have shown this with these examples. Okay, moving on to the next part of this kind of urbanization, that why the unregulated land use change make us more prone to the disease. Now, in the unregulated land use change, what we are doing, we are encroaching upon the forest. Okay, we are engaging in deforestation and habitat fragmentation. Now, when we are doing deforestation and habitat fragmentation, we are creating the path habitats. What we are creating, let us do it in detail. we are doing creating path habitats. Now what is this path habitat? For example, this is the Bandipur forest reserve. Okay, this is the Bandipur forest reserve. Okay, and you are engaging in creating a road in this Bandipur forest reserve here. Now by making a road here, okay, you divided this forest reserve into separate areas. Okay, this separate area has created path habitat and has increased the edge effect. This edge effect has made the ecosystem more vulnerable. So ecosystem means flora and fauna. Flora and fauna has become more vulnerable, has become more vulnerable. Now plus this, along with this vulnerability, this flora and fauna will migrate to adjacent centers, will migrate to adjacent population centers, and this will inevitably lead to the contact between the wildlife and human. So this kind of process that we are engaging in will lead to a close contact, will lead to formation of a close contact between animals and humans, between animals and humans, right? And the example of this is the monkey fever. Okay, whose outbreak was witnessed in Karnataka, and this was the main reason, this habitat fragmentation and encroachment, and then close contact between the animals and humans, leading to the jump. This is the jump of species barrier. So this is also called this jump of the species barrier. Okay, jump of species barrier. Okay, for example, a host was adapted to the animal body, but because of the ecological changes, this host jumped to the humans and adapted to the human bodies. Okay, and this happens in almost all the zoonotic diseases. Okay, so this thing of the land use change that we engage in the unregulated, okay, deforestation and the habitat fragmentation, and how this has affected or led to the increase in zoonotic disease. So we are doing it in this under this head. This is our main head, right? That how the unregulated land use changes have affected the zoonotic disease. So first we did the urbanization, okay, and second we did the this thing deforestation and the fragmentation, habitat fragmentation, and the next we will do is the agriculture, how this kind of land use change in agriculture has also led to spread of the zoonotic disease. So agricultural unregulated land use change, unregulated land use change, right? Now in agriculture, what we are engaging in is again a very unsustainable practice. First of all, in agriculture we are encroaching on the forest land, and while encroaching on forest land we are engaging in deforestation, and the negative effect in term how the zoonotic disease spread because of deforestation we have told in the just previous slide. The second aspect in this is that in the agricultural areas we are keeping the animals in very closed spacings. Okay. Additionally, in developing countries more so, they are kept in unhygienic conditions. Okay, so this close spacing and unhygienic condition has led to outbreak of many diseases in the animals, has led to outbreak of diseases in animals, in agri animals, right? For example, the example here can be given of, for example, the H1N1 in poultry animals, in poultry animals, right? Or the outbreak of TB in cattle. Okay, so these all are the reason of, because we are not taking care of cattle or other poultry animals with the hygienic environment and proper medical facilities for these animals. So this is the big reason that unregulated agricultural land use change has led to the spread of the zoonotic diseases. So right, and finally, indirectly what we can say, in the spread of zoonotic disease like coronavirus, we can say indirectly also because of such land use changes, indirectly also because of such land use changes, okay, there would be climate change, and this climate change definitely would lead to spread of more pathogens. Along with this, what we can say, climate change would lead to the glacial melts, and these glacial melts would free the stocked pathogens which are frozen in them, pathogens which are frozen currently in frozen condition in these glaciers. So these stocked pathogen when freed would again lead to spread of the zoonotic diseases. Okay, so this is a indirect effect of the land use change, that how indirectly the land use change would lead to the spread of the zoonotic diseases. So what we did is that how this unregulated land use change are making us more prone to zoonotic diseases like coronavirus. First, what we will write about the urbanization, how urbanization has changed and how this changed urbanization has led to the spread of this kind of diseases. Then in next we will say that how the deforestation and the habitat fragmentation has led to the edge effect, and this has left the species more vulnerable. For example of the monkey fever in Karnataka can be given. Then the next we can write about the unregulated land use changes in the agriculture and how such kind of land use has led to the spread of the disease and outbreaks in the animals. And finally, these three were the direct changes, and finally the indirectly, how the indirectly land use will affect the indirectly how the land use change would spread the disease and the pathogens. So this was the first topic. Okay, detailed discussion of the land use. Moving on to the next topic. So we will move on the next topic, that is the land use changes in the urban areas. So this was the Indian scale, okay, the complete spatial scale all across India that we discussed this question. The next topic is the land use changes in the metropolitan areas or the cities of India. Like, so the next topic of this class is the land use changes in urban areas in or metropolitan cities of India, in metropolitan cities of India. Okay, so we will discuss the land use changes in the metropolitan cities of India. So first of all, as I said that urban areas of India have witnessed top heavy urbanization. So in India is witnessing very strong metropolization. That means the million plus cities. That means million plus cities. Okay, these cities are expanding at very fast rate. Are expanding at very fast rate. Okay, and this has created number of problems. Okay, let us give first of all again a brief data that is 42% of urban population of India is living in 52 million plus cities. 52 million plus cities. Okay, and this kind of urbanization has led to urban sprawl. Okay, now urban sprawl is happening in the nearby areas, in the rural areas adjacent to the cities, right? So in this sense what we are saying that the cities have encroached. In this sense what we are saying that cities have encroached cities have encroached upon the arable land. Cities have encroached upon the forest land. Cities have encroached upon the barren land and the culturable lands or the fallow lands. Okay, so this is the main problem in the expansion of cities in India because it is completely unregulated and almost unplanned. Okay, so let us do it with the some figures and facts. This question that how the cities have encroached. For example, National Capital Territory of India, and this is from 2001 to 2010. 2001 to 2010. Okay, the non-agricultural land use, this area witnessed sharp increase, right? The arable area, as we said, in the National Capital Territory, this witnessed a decrease. And how much decrease was there in this period? In the arable area, where cultivation was done, this witnessed sharp decrease from 42% to 36%, right? The part of National Capital Territory, Delhi, is the district of Haryana, Sonipat. Sonipat witnessed the non-agricultural land use change. This area, NALU, this increased 3 times in Sonipat. Okay, large industries were established. So this became an industrial region in between this period I am talking about 2001 and 2010. Similarly, Faridabad, another district of Haryana in NCT, Faridabad, witnessed 1.5 times increase in the non-agricultural land use. Another district of UP that is part of the NCT, Noida, witnessed 0.75 times increase in non-agricultural land use in this period. So this you can see that how the non-agricultural land use increased in the vicinity of the capital of India, right? The second city that is Mumbai, in the same period from 2001 to 2010, witnessed the urban growth of 1.25% per annum. This is the urban growth witnessed by the Mumbai in this period, right? And Mumbai, if you see, expanded more particularly in the Raigad district of Maharashtra. Raigad district. And increase in non-agriculture land use area. This increase was 1.44 times, or 1.44%. So this is the example of Mumbai, how Mumbai expanded in the Raigad. Next is the Chennai. Third is the how Chennai expanded in this period, 2001 to 2010 period. Chennai expanded in two districts more aggressively. One is in the Thiruvallur in north. It witnessed 11% increase in non-agriculture land use area. Land use. You are understanding this area. This is like road infrastructure, urban infrastructure, okay? All these areas. And in the south, Chennai expanded in the Kanchipuram, and it expanded by 4.2%. So this much percent increase in non-agriculture land use area. So this is how the Chennai expanded. Okay. Moving on to the next city, that is the Bengaluru. In 2001 to 2010 period, Bangalore expanded in the rural Bangalore and the urban Bangalore. So rural Bangalore witnessed 78% increase. 78% increase in non-agriculture land use area. Urban Bengaluru witnessed 45% increase in non-agriculture land use area, and this mainly happened, you all know, because of the expansion of the IT infrastructure in the Bangalore. The next city that we will study, that how that city expanded, okay, was the Kolkata. Kolkata expanded in Howrah in three districts. In Howrah, Kolkata expanded by 17%. So it witnessed 70% increase in non-agriculture land use area. In 24th North Pargana, Kolkata witnessed 13.5% increase in NALU, and in 24th South Pargana, Kolkata witnessed 2.3% increase in non-agriculture land use area. So this is how the Indian cities are expanding in the adjacent areas, and how the non-agriculture land use is increasing. Okay, so this is just a statistics of these cities. But what is more important, that what are the factors leading to such changes? Okay, so let us study the factors. Factors leading to such land use changes. Okay. So factor number one is increase in population. Population increase. As we have said that the urbanization of India increased from 17% to 31% from the 1951 census to the 2011 census. Okay, so because of increase in population, the cities expanded. The second was the planned development, so-called planned development. Now, for example, in case of Delhi master plan, okay, floor space index, this was fixed. Floor space index was fixed. Okay, and it was fixed in such a manner that the Delhi, it was fixed in such a manner that Delhi witnessed horizontal sprawl. Delhi witnessed horizontal sprawl. And which kind of horizontal sprawl Delhi is witnessing? This is called the ribbon sprawl. Okay. For example, this is the Delhi. Okay, this is NH44. This is NH44. Okay, the highway that is connecting Delhi with Chandigarh. This NH44 witnessing the urban sprawl. So small cities, for example DLF cities and other cities, are witnessing the growth in this along this highway here. Okay, so this kind of sprawl is being witnessed along the Delhi because of this FSI, or the horizontal sprawl model, that was, a kind of adapted in the master plan of Delhi. Okay, and these intervening green spaces are being filled with the rapacious infrastructure projects. So that's why you can see that this arable area, which is very fertile, this alluvium is very fertile, is being lost to the concrete grounds. Okay, so this is the second reason that we saw, that how the factors that are leading to such land use changes. Number one is the population increase, second one is the development that are and the master plans that we are adopting. Okay, the fourth factor is the infrastructure development. Infrastructure, although this is the part of previous heading only, but a separate heading can also be made, the infrastructure development. Okay, like India is making the satellite cities, okay, dual cities, okay. So because of this, there is a rise of secondary cities, okay, and this rise is main reason or leading to change in such land use changes, right? So we are witnessing highways, roadways, okay, dams, etc. So this can be mentioned under this head also. Okay, then the next part that can be written is, that is the real estate sector, rise of real estate sector. So after 1991 reforms, the real estate sector grew very fast, and this real estate sector has led to speculative land use. Okay, and this speculation in the land use, particularly in the land prices, has led to building of the what we call as the ribbon malls, and the expensive land uses in India. So the real estate sector has led to speculative land use changes, speculative land use prices, it can also be said. Okay, and because of this, the land use change has been completely unregulated in the vicinity of the big cities or the metropolitan cities. Okay, so these were the main reason. So in this head, what we saw, that how the land use changes in the metropolitan cities are happening in India. Okay, then we just established a basic context. Okay, and then we saw some figures and the facts, that how the Mumbai, Delhi, okay, Bengaluru and the Chennai are expanding in the region. And then we saw the three reasons for this, not 5 reasons for this expansion. The first reason that we saw was the population increase. The second reason was the planned development that was undertaken was such Okay, and then the third reason that we saw was this thing. Sorry, this was third actually. Infrastructure development. Infrastructure development, that how the infrastructure development has led to development of additional cities, dual cities, okay, and other infrastructure projects. And the last head that we saw under this was the rise of real estate sector. And this rise of real estate sector has led to the expensive land uses, okay, construction of urban malls, speculative pricing. Okay, this all has led to the unregulated land use changes in India. So unregulated land use changes in vicinity of metropolitan cities of India, in vicinity of metro cities, right? So this was the topic here. So we will move on to the next topic of this class, that is again a big topic and important one, and it is the common property resources, the common okay, whatever you can say it, common pool resources or common property resources, common pool resources. So this is the third topic of this class. So we will first discuss what is the common. So in this topic, let us discuss first what are common property resources, then their distribution in India, how they are distributed across different states in India, and third one is the significance of common pool resources in India. Okay, significance. So this is how we will study it. So first of all, what are the common property resources? Common property resources are owned by a group of people. So these are owned by a group of people, and they have common access to them. They have. So this is the definition of common property resources. They are owned by a group of people and all can use these property resources. Okay. For example, the pond, okay, forests, grassland, okay, pastures, pasture land, okay, and wasteland. So all these are the examples of CPR, common pool resources. Okay, so we have done what are the common pool resources. Okay, now let us set the context. In case of India, if you see, India, we have just 2.4% of the land area, and on this 2.4% we are sustaining 17% world population. Okay, 17% population of cattle, right? For now, this just signifies that we are land scarce country, more particularly land resource scarce country. Okay, so this leads to adverse population resource ratio. This kind of land scarcity, land resource scarcity, this leads to adverse population resource ratio. For example, so we can say that USA has the favorable population resource ratio, Australia has favorable population resource ratio, but because of this much this is only 2.4% land sustaining 70% human population, 17% cattle population. This has made our land resources scarce, leading to the adverse population resource ratio. So to overcome this kind of situation, do we have any tool to our hand? Can we have some, can we do something to overcome this kind of problem? Yes, we can do. We have to adjust to the common pool resources. we have to be aware of these resources, we have to manage these resources, and we have to use these resources. So this is the solution for managing the scarce land resources of our country. So now let us move on the next segment after setting the context. So this is the context that we will discuss. Okay, moving on to the next part of this topic, that is how the CPR are distributed across India, different states, how they are distributed in different states, what is the percentage area of different states under the common pool resources. Okay, so if you see, the first of all, the states where so let us make a heading, distribution. So if you see in the distribution, the states where the common pool resource area is more than 20%, CPR area is more than 20%. So these states are like the Rajasthan. Okay, Rajasthan, where the CPR is 32%, right? Madhya Pradesh, MP, where the CPR is 22%, right? Then you have example like Gujarat. You have CPR in Gujarat 27%. So these three states can be remembered here. Okay. Then the states where the CPR is less than 10%. Okay, CPR less than 10%. Okay, these are the states like Punjab, where the CPR is 1%. Haryana, where CPR is, I think, 3%. Yes. Assam, CPR 7%. So you can very easily make a guess from here, these two, that the states which are having more CPR are less developed states. Okay, leave the Gujarat here, this is exception. The states which are more developed, they have the less CPR, common pool resources. Okay, so let us make it a more broad. First of all, that according to physiography, or the physiography wise, if you see in plains, their distribution is 1 to 5%. Okay, in the islands, their distribution of CPR, common pool resources, is 9%. In case of the coastal plains, their distribution varies from 10 to 12%. In the plateau region, the distribution varies from 9 to 20% distribution of CPR. Okay, and in the dry regions of India, CPR varies from 27 to 38%. So this is how the CPR varies. So if you see in the plains 1 to 5%, in island 9%, in coastal plains 10 to 12%, 9 to 20% in the plateau region, and in the dry region 27 to 38%. You can see a complete increase here if you go from here, that is plains, islands, coastal regions, plateau, and the dry regions of the CPR. So this is how the CPR is distributed. Okay, first of all, we saw according to as per the states where it is more than 20%. Okay, states where it is more than 20%, state where it is less than 10%. Then we saw the distribution physiography wise, that in plains how the CPR in the plains, how CPR in the islands, how is it in the plateau and the dry regions. Now let us see that how this CPR, why the third topic that we saw, that we said that we will do is the the significance. Okay, so the third one is after what, the distribution. The third one is the significance of CPR, significance of s- common pool resources, why they are important. As we said, India is a land scarce country. That is the main significance of the CPR. But let us write some more headings that why, or study in little deep that what is the significance of the CPR. First of all, those who are processing the livestock, those people who keep livestock, those who process livestock. Okay, 56% of these people, they depend upon CPR, common pool resources. 56%. Okay, for fodder collection, there is 13% dependency. For fodder collection, there is 13% dependency on CPR. 13% dependency on CPR, common pool resources. Okay, for grazing purposes, for grazing purpose, there is 20% dependency on CPR, common pool resources. For cultivation, there is 2% dependency. For cultivation of fodder for these livestock animals, 2% dependency on common pool resources. So this was the first significance, that is for those people who process the livestock, right? Now the significance of the next heading that we can make is the significance of CPR for irrigation purposes. For irrigation purposes, in India, 23% people are dependent upon CPR for irrigation. 23% people are dependent on CPR for irrigation purposes. And CPR dependence is greater in CPR dependence is greater in backward and the dry regions, backward and dry regions of country. These regions routinely suffer from the problems like drought. Okay, and the CPR, common pool resources, they act as moderator. CPR, they act as moderator and they reduces the hazard intensity, hazard intensity, and increases the capacity of people, local people. Okay, so this can be mentioned under the second part. Okay, what was the second one? That for irrigation, how the CPR are important. Moving on to the third part, that is significance number 3, the importance of the CPR in the poverty reduction. How CPR helps in poverty reduction. Okay, let us see this. See, I am giving a case study of UP, Uttar Pradesh. In Uttar Pradesh, the percentage of family which are dependent on CPR, the percentage of families which are dependent upon CPR, Okay, we are making that diagram here. These are the, okay, so let us do it in different manner. Sorry. So in UP, the percentage of families which are dependent upon the CPR, landless laborers, 36% landless laborers in UP are dependent upon the common property resources. So you can understand their significance. Marginal farmers with land less than 1 hectare, 48% marginal farmers are dependent upon CPR. You can understand for what purpose: for irrigation, for fodder collection, etc. Small farmers, if you ask small farmers, 9.33% small farmers are dependent upon CPR in UP. Okay, medium farmers, if you say medium farmers with land between 2 to 10 hectare, 5.33% medium farmers are dependent upon CPR. So the significance of CPR in poverty reduction is huge. Okay, so this is the third aspect here. What is the importance or the significance of the CPR? Okay, so the next topic that we are going to study here is this: the but what is the problem associated with this? What is the, if they are so important, then what is the problem? What is the problem if the CPR is so important, there is so much significant? What is the problem then? Okay, so there are number of problems which are associated with it. Number one is the access to CPR. Access to CPR in India is again identity forbidden. Okay, how identities have prevented the many caste or many identities from accessing the CPR. Okay, lower caste are not able to access as freely as the upper caste are able to access the CPR, for example. The number two is the lack of interest of local people in management. Lack of interest of local people in the management of land resources in management. Okay, so local people show less interest in managing the CPR. Okay, they are CPR, they are common resources, but they have to be managed, they have to be carefully nurtured. Okay, so that interest is not shown. Number three problem that is associated with is the lack of suitable legislations, lack of suitable laws related to management of CPR. Common pool resources. This is the third problem, right? The next problem is the lack of awareness among the local people. Lack of awareness among local people with respect to environment degradation. So this is the fourth problem. Okay, so we discussed this was the last point of this question, the common pool resources. So what we discussed in this question is, so let us start again. So this is here we started that common pool resources of India. Okay, and we said that we will discuss first what are the common pool resources. Okay, how they are distributed state wise and geography wise, what is their significance, and we also added one more dimension, that is the problems associated with the CPR. Okay, this was the last topic that we added. So first of all we defined CPR. Okay, then we said that where we set the context, okay, that how the India is a land scarce country. Okay, then we started with the distribution of CPR, state wise distribution that we did. Rajasthan 32%, MP 22, Gujarat 27%, Punjab, Haryana, Assam less than 10%. Okay, then we did physiography wise division. Okay, how in the plains, island, coastal lands, plateaus, dry region the CPR distributed. And finally we did the significance of CPR. Okay, what is the significance of CPR? They are how those who process the livestock 56% dependency, for irrigation 23% dependency, and for poverty reduction we did the case study of UP, that how the landless 36% landless laborers in UP are dependent on the CPR, how 48% marginal farmers with land less than 1 hectare dependent on the CPR, small farmers 9.33% dependency, for medium farmer 5.33% dependency. And then finally we did the problems associated with the common pool resources. What are the problems associated with the common pool resources, right? So we did wrote four problems: the excess of CPR, okay, lack of interest by the local people in the management, okay, lack of stable legislation to manage the CPR, and lack of awareness among the local people with respect to the environment degradation. So this was the third topic of this class, a major topic. And now we are moving on to the last topic of this class, that is the, see, we have seen the number of problems here, okay, with regard to land use changes. We first also the how the land use has changed India from 1950 to 51, how it has changed in the cities, what are the common pool resources, what is the problem associated with common pool resources. So this all concept were related with the land, okay, but so there were problem in all these concepts. Okay, that means what India need now, what we as a country need now, so we need a land utilization policy. So to deal with all these problems we need to have a concrete policy, okay, a consolidated, a strategic document that deals with all these problems of land use. So such a huge problem, only 2% of land, and we are mismanaging this 2.4% land. So that's why we need a national land utilization policy, NLUP. Okay, and let us frame this policy as a last topic of this class: national land utilization policy. National land utilization policy. Okay, so we need national land utilization policy. So first, why we need national land utilization policy? Okay, okay, number one is that unregulated land use changes. Unregulated land use changes, these have to be stopped, so this is first objective of the policy. Okay, as we have seen that there are unregulated land use changes. For example, the agriculture arable area has increased from 41 to 46%. Okay, forest area has increased from close to 8% to 22%. Okay, the non-arable, okay, this is the for forest, this is for net zone area. Okay, similarly the mining area has increased to 0.17%. This is mining area. Okay, so these kind of land use changes, these all are land use changes that are happening. Similarly, urban area is currently 2.3%. This is the urban space. Okay, so what you are seeing, these all are the land use changes. So these all land use changes have to be properly regulated by this policy. With the particular policy, this have to be particularly managed. Okay, the next objective of the policy should be See, there is reducing per capita land resource. Okay, per capita land resource in India has decreased from 0.89 hectare to 0.27 hectare, and this is the data of 1995. It was 0.89 hectare. In 2007 it is 0.27 hectare. So there is per capita land resource is decreasing. Okay, so this decrease in per capita land resource will create problems for various development activities. So if this kept on decreasing, this will create problems for development activities. Okay, so to prevent such conditions from arising, we have to regulate the land use change. Okay, so this is the second part. Okay, the first part is the unregulated land use change has to be stopped. Per capita land use that is being reduced will have to be reversed. Okay, the third part is the protecting the land under the natural resources. Protecting the land under natural resources like forest, etc. We know the natural resources provides us the very important ecosystem services. These are the provisioning services. Okay, these are regulating services. These are sporting services. These are aesthetic services. Okay, so these services have to be protected, and simultaneously we know that the if you encroach upon the natural resources, we are leaving ourselves prone to the diseases like zoonotic diseases. So to avoid these negative effects, we have to regulate the forest land use change as well. So this was the third part, why we should have a national land utilization policy. Then the fourth aspect that we can write, the meeting the urbanization demands. Meeting the urbanization demand. We have said it repeatedly and repeatedly that urbanization in India has increased from 17% to 31%. This is the data of 2011, this is data of 1950, and this urbanization will increase to 50% by 2050. So if this kind of urbanization is happening, that means we need huge land for the urbanization, right? So for meeting the space for this kind of population, we need very cautious urban planning, and the urban land use has to be regulated properly. So 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 the end is, so the main point is the urban land use has to be regulated very cautiously, has to be regulated very cautiously, right? So this is the fourth point. Okay, because we know that urban areas are expanding in the rural areas. Okay, arable land is being reduced because of their expansion, and okay, unregulated sprawl is happening. This is creating additional problems of inequality and other associated problems. So that's why urban areas, the urban expanding cities, have to be regulated in a proper manner, right? That's why, again, that's why we need the urban or national land utilization policy. This was the fourth point, that why we need urban national land utilization policy. Fifth point is, we can say, meeting the industrialization demands. Meeting the industrialization demands. See, we have to make the space, the land available for the national NIMZ, national investment manufacturing zones. We have to make the land available for special economic zones. Okay, we have to make the land available for coastal economic zones. So all these special zones require huge amount of land. So the industrialization activities which is going on, which require huge land, this has to be regulated. This has to be regulated in a streamlined fashion or a streamlined manner. So that's why we need to have a national land utilization policy. The next point that we can say that why we again need a national land utilization policy, that is the sixth point, the mining, expanding mining activities. Expanding mining activities. See, mining, India's 0.17% area witnesses mining, right? And this 0.17% area is in a very ecologically sensitive zone. Okay, this is in very eco-sensitive zone. As we all know, the mines are mostly under the forest areas, and this 0.17% mining contributes to 2.72% GDP plus more than 10 lakh of employment. So if you see from the commercial perspective, it is an important economic activity, right? But this is also harming the natural resources because this is on the forest land. So to balance the development and ecology, we need a national land utilization policy. National land utilization policy. Okay, so this was the sixth point, why we need national land utilization policy. Okay, moving on to the seventh, okay, sub part of this question, that why we need national land utilization policy. Sub part 7, for transportation infrastructure, for transport sector demand, for transport sector demand. See, India currently has 55.8 million kilometers of the road length. Million kilometer of road length. 5.8. This is 5.8. Okay, million kilometers of road length. So this much is the road length, and we are expanding the road length. Okay, so this requires huge quantity of land resource, right? Huge quantity of land resource. So that's why we need again national land utilization policy. So what we have said, that for all these purposes, from unregulated land use change, for per capita land resources, per capita land natural resources, meeting the urbanization, we have to industrialize, we need these specialized zones, so we need to make them land available. We have to expand the mining activities, again we have to make the land available. Transport sector, so for all these purposes we need to provide the land. Okay, and this land has to be very sustainably managed and sustainably provided. That's why we need a national land utilization policy. Okay, so this was the last of this class. Okay, we discussed quite a lot of topic in this class. Okay, we started with, I think, the how the land was used post independence. Okay, we studied from 1950 to 2001 decade wise. Okay, then we studied the land reforms. Okay, then we studied the land use changes in India. Okay, then we studied the metropolitan land use changes. So this was fourth topic that we did. Okay, then we did the common pool resources, CPR, and the last was the national land utilization policy NLUP. Okay, so these were the topics that we discussed in this class. Okay, so this was the quite a heavy dose. Okay, so we will start with the next, that is lecture number 11. Okay, in the next class, and we will start with the next topic, that is agriculture. Okay, so we will start with the agriculture in the next class. So this was this last of this class. So subscribe the channel and do like the video. Okay, thank you.